In today's video, we are going to look at chapters 3. Let's begin. As usual, we start with a summary of the chapter. In chapters 3, we see that Pa, Lacey's grandfather, interprets Arvel's actions as repentance, unlike Mama, giving a long biblical style speech about every man eventually turning from their waywardness. Uncle Leroy jokes that he doesn't mind Lacey moving to La Puerta as long as she comes back on weekends to clean his bicycle, but Pa scolds him for making light of the situation. Ma pretends to stay neutral, but Lacey senses that she has already decided in favor of the move, especially once Mama Patsy's letter arrives approving the plan. Mama Patsy's letter emphasizes sacrifice and hope. She is revealed that Lacey can study in Trinidad rather than endure New York, where she says even dogs should not have to live. She insists Lacey must return home if mistreated. Finally, the extended family supports the decision, with Uncle Jameson and Tante Monica glad Arthur is finally stepping up. Ultimately, Lacey jokingly agrees with Uncle Leroy that she will go, saying she is tired of cleaning his bicycle. Now let us take a look at the setting and the different environments presented. Chapter 3 shapes the lives of the characters, the physical environment. The passage presents several settings that shape the lives of the characters, beginning with the physical environment. Lacey's home in La Puerta represents a rural, close-knit community where family chores and simple living dominate daily life. This is reflected when Uncle Leroy jokes that she can live in La Puerta as long as she comes back on weekends to clean his bicycle. In contrast, New York is described by Mama Patsy as harsh and unsuitable, especially for children. She insists that this place they call New York City is not fit for people, far less for people's children. This comparison highlights the warmth and simplicity of the Caribbean setting against the struggle and alienation of urban migrant experience in New York. The social environment is also presented in this chapter. It is presented as a family-oriented setting. Decisions about Lacey's future are not just made by her alone, but involves extended relatives like Uncle Jameson, Tante Monica, Uncle Leroy, her parents, and both grandparents. This shows the communal nature of Caribbean family life where children rearing is shared responsibility. At the same time, the chapter emphasizes the sacrifices women make for their children. Mama Patsy admits, I would just have to stay and mop the hospital until I see every one of them, highlighting her willingness to ensure her children's education. Education itself is highly valued in this society, and this is seen in the chapter when she celebrates, I am so glad that Lacey got her place in secondary school. It is a weight off my mind. For this family, education is viewed as the pathway out of poverty and a means of securing a better life. Let us look at two other environments presented. The cultural environment. This is seen vividly throughout. Migration plays a central role, as seen in Mama Patsy's promise to send home a barrel of goods, a tradition common in Caribbean families with members living abroad. She says, I am posting a barrel soon. Tell Leroy, as soon as it comes, he must take the 2 little dresses to Charlene before they get too small for her. This practice reflects both the ties between the diaspora and home, and a sense of duty to support a family from far away. Additionally, the language used in the dialogue, such as Uncle Leroy's, but Lacey, you ain't said nothing yet. You want to go? And Lacey's promise, well, I tired of cleaning your bicycle, Uncle Leroy. I think I'm going, yes. Reveals the Creole influenced rhythms of Caribbean speech. Such language reflects cultural identity and grounds the story in a specific community, specifically in Trinidad. The religious and moral environment. This is the final environment seen in chapters 3, and it shapes the Christian values of Lacey's family. Papa frames his change of heart in biblical language, declaring, there comes a time in a man's life when he repenteth of the evil he hath done it. He insists that no man can walk in waywardness for all the days of his life, when making reference to Lacey's father, Mr. Cephas. This reflects a moral framework rooted in Christianity, where repentance and taking responsibility are expected of fathers. This religious undertone demonstrates how spiritual values are woven in everyday life and decisions. Now, let us take a look at the characters presented in this chapter. Now, these are all the characters mentioned, and again, they are not all major characters. So, let us look at the major characters. We will look at Pa, Uncle Leroy, and Mama Patsy in this chapter. First up, Papa is really the family's moral and spiritual voice. He speaks in these long, sermon-like speeches, almost like a pastor. At one point, he declares on page 18, "There comes a time in every man's life," he said, "when he repenteth of the evil he hath done." Here, he's framing Orville's return not just as a visit, but as repentance. So he gives the whole situation moral weight. His role is bigger than just being a grandfather. Here he validates Orville's attempt to do his duty as a father by showing the family that Lacey's move isn't just practical. It's a part of the bigger cycle of redemption and responsibility. Uncle Leroy is seen here as playful, the jokester of the family. He lightens the mood. Even in serious moments, he teases, saying he didn't mind Lacey moving to La Puerta as long as she comes home on weekends to clean his bicycle. And then by the end of the chapter, he and Lacey share a warm, funny moment where she says, "I tired of cleaning your bicycle, Uncle Leroy. I think I'm going, yes." That laughter between them really shows their close bond and also highlights the bond that does not exist between her and her father. His role here is to serve as a comic relief, but also comfort. He softens the tension of a tough situation and reminds us of the affection within their family. Finally, Mama Patsy. Even though she's not physically in the chapter, her presence dominates through her letters from New York. On page 19, we see that she's hardworking and talking about mopping dirty hospital floors, but also practical and protective even in her absence. Something Lacey's father, who lives in the next community, is not. She tells Lacey that if Orville and Miss Velma mistreat her, she should pack her bungle and go straight back home. At the same time, she is brutally honest about her life in New York and tells us, "This is not the place I want to take my child because I would not take my dog here." That line shows her disillusionment. She's making huge sacrifices, but she doesn't want her children to grow up in those conditions. Her role here, she finalizes the decision. Her approval gives authority even from abroad. But more than that, she represents that migration story of many Caribbean parents working hard overseas, sacrificing so their children can succeed back home. Let's now delve into the narrative techniques and literary devices. One of the most striking things here is the use of Mama Patsy's letter from New York. Through her own words, she speaks directly to the family. She says on page 19, "It's high time that man did something for his child. If he will help to support her, then maybe I can give up some mopping the dirty hospital floor and come home to garden." The line shows the sacrifice she's making as a migrant mother and how frustrated she is with Orville's past neglect. She even goes as far as to say, "I wouldn't want to bring my dog here, as a child of mine must have to come and live this life." Now that is raw, emotional honesty about the struggles of migration. And of course, she is protective. She warns in that very same letter, Lacey can go and live with her father. But if they show her any kind of bad face, she must pack her bungle and go straight back home. Now this letter is crucial. It is effective because it lets an absent mother's voice come through directly. It widens the novel beyond La Puerta and Baletier to the bigger Caribbean realities of migration, sacrifice, and survival. It also shows how education is seen as a ticket out of hardship, and it proves that even from thousands of miles away, Mama Patsy is still a moral authority in Lacey's life. Which is quite ironic because her father lives in the next community, a bus ride away, and has no moral authority, no say in Lacey's life at all. Let us now look at the use of first-person narration. Now, the chapter is told entirely again through Lacey's personal lenses, which makes it deeply intimate and subjective. On page 19, for example, she observes that Ma was pretending that she had no opinion on the matter and that she was letting the rest of us decide. But I knew that she had made up her mind even before my mother, Mama Patsy, wrote back to say that she had approved. This insight shows how Lacey interprets silence as authority, revealing her sharp understanding of family dynamics even as a child. Later, when Uncle Leroy teases her playful response reflects her humor and resilience in the face of change. Now, this is important because it allows the readers to see beyond what adults present on the surface, capturing both the tension and the humor of the family life. It gives authenticity to the story by filtering events through the perspective of a young girl, balancing seriousness with wit. It also connects with the theme of family and parent-child relationship, since we experience not just decisions being made for Lacey, but her emotional response and coping mechanisms as she prepares to leave. Let's now look at the use of metaphor, which is a device within the story. Papa declares that there comes a time in every man's life, and he continues by saying, no man can walk in waywardness for all his days. Here, walking in waywardness is a metaphor for living irresponsible and neglectful, which we have been told that this is what Harville has been doing. It refers directly to Harville's years of absence and lack of support for Lacey. The metaphor gives a moral and almost biblical weight to Harville's situation, casting his neglect as a kind of spiritual failing that demands repentance, and him returning as him repenting. Hyperbole is used where we see Mama Patsy in her letter from New York writes, I wouldn't want to bring even a dog to this place. This is an exaggerated statement, since obviously we know that dogs do live in New York, but she uses the hyperbole to emphasize the harshness of immigrant life and how unsuitable it is for raising children. The hyperbole dramatizes the deep frustration and sacrifice, allowing us as readers to feel the emotional weight of her struggle. It also connects with the theme of migration and poverty, while stressing how much she values education as a true path to a better life. Let us look at some symbols and motifs presented. Now, although we just discussed Mama Patsy's letter as a narrative technique, it is also symbolic. The letter expands the novel's scope from La Puerta to the wider Caribbean diaspora experience, showing how migration reshaped families during this period. It highlights the theme of education as upward mobility, since Mama Patsy equates Laetitia's school success with her own struggle being worthwhile. At the same time, it underscores the enduring role of mothers as moral and guiding figures even from afar. Mama Patsy's authority influences decisions and protects her child. Thus, the letter operates as both a private family message and a cultural document symbolizing the hopes and hardships of the entire family. Let us now look at the barrel, which is a symbol of migration and provision. The barrel becomes more than just a container of goods. It symbolizes a deep cultural practice of Caribbean migration, where we expect barrel at the end of a year, the end of a term, the end of something, sometimes even more than one. For decades, migrants in cities like New York, London, or even Toronto would pack barrel with food and clothes and household items to send back to their families. These barrels carried not only material goods, but emotional weights, and also relieving financial burdens, were tokens of sacrifice, care, and hope of a better life for those left behind. Here, the barrel stands as a symbol of survival, sacrifice, and connection across the distance. It reflects the harsh realities that families were separated by migration, yet remained bound through these tangible reminders of love and responsibility. For Lacey's family, the barrel eases poverty while also reinforcing dependence on those abroad. Within the theme of the novel, it links directly to migration, family duty, economic inequality, showing how education and opportunity were sustained not just by local effort, but also by sacrifices of relatives working in harsh conditions overseas. The barrel, like Papa's speeches, becomes a recurring reminder of the wider Caribbean reality. Survival was collective, and migration shaped every life. Finally, Papa's speech started off as a symbol, a minor one, However, see, it has turned into a motive. He takes Orville's failings and frames them as a biblical moment of repentance. This motive highlights how Caribbean elders often act as moral anchors, interpreting education and family responsibility as religious and cultural duties. Papa's speeches echoes the rhythm of sermons and ancestral oral tradition, reinforcing themes of patriarchy, repentance, and family duty. Later in the story, his voice resurfaces as key family milestones, reminding us that education and responsibilities are not only personal achievements, but collective moral victories tied to traditions. Finally, the themes presented. The theme of repentance and forgiveness is seen in this chapter. Papa frames Orville's return as him repenting and wanting to do his duty. We also see the theme of migration and separation. Mama Patsy is separated from her family and she only stays connected with them through her letters and her burial. And we see that she says that migration does have a toll on her. It not just creates opportunity, but it creates painful distances for her and her family. Education is again presented as a means of upward mobility. For Lacey, her achievement is seen as a family victory and key to a better future for all of them. We see the theme of tradition and moral authority, where Papa's speeches act as a moral compass, framing Orville's action in a biblical and cultural way. Then we also see the theme of parental authority and protection. Both Ma and Mama Patsy interrogates Orville's motives and sets condition for Lacey's move. The theme of poverty and economic survival is also presented. The letter mentions Mama Patsy's hard jobs, mopping floors, cleaning hospitals, and her plan to send a barrel of supplies, reflecting the family's financial struggle and reliance on these migrant remittances. And finally, humor as a means of a coping mechanism. Lacey and Uncle Leroy jokes about her cleaning his bicycle before agreeing to go and shows how humor lightens the serious situations, which is usually a cultural coping mechanism within the Caribbean. This has taken us to the end of our video for today. Please remember to like this video. Do not forget to leave your comments. Let me know what you want to be done next. Don't forget to subscribe, as this helps my channel to grow, and hit that good old notification bell so that you can be informed when videos like these are posted. Until then, bye.